Hey y'all, this is Miss Grant, and today we're going to talk about surface area. Still sticking with geometry, but we're going to talk about surface area today. We talked about area in the last video, finding the area of polygons. Well, today we're going to take those area of polygons and find the area of 3D shapes, which is what we call surface area. Okay, so we have our 3D shapes here, like a pyramid. You've got a rectangular prism. You've got a triangular prism. You have a cube. Okay. You also have a larger rectangular prism. Okay. Now, we're going to find the surface area of these 3D shapes. And when we talk about surface area, we're talking about covering the outside of the shape. So volume is on the inside, but surface area is on the outside. How do I cover the outside of this? So imagine if I was putting something around this shape. Well, okay, how much do I need to put around this shape? Okay. So our objective for today is I can find the surface area of 3D shapes and identify their nets. When they talk about their nets, okay, let's say I have my rectangular prism here, they're talking about, okay, if I unfold it, this is what it looks like. So a net is just an unfolded 3D shape. And we can use these nets to help us find the surface area. Okay. All right. Now again, like I said, when you're thinking about the surface area of a 3D object, really what you're thinking about is how much wrapping paper you need to wrap a present. Okay. So if I was going to wrap my beautiful cube here, how much wrapping paper do I need to cover it? Okay. Or with my rectangular prism, how much wrapping paper do I need? Or if I was to wrap this pyramid, okay, how much wrapping paper do I need to cover this bad boy? Okay. All right. Don't worry about drawing the present. It's not going to be perfect. Please do not spend a lot of time drawing it. It's just a visual aid for you. Okay. Now, to help you find the surface area of any 3D object, there are 3 beautiful steps that you need to follow. Okay. So, our steps to finding surface area. Our first step is to identify the shapes and how many of that shape make up the 3D object. Okay, looking at our cube. Okay, how many or what kinds of shapes do you see in a cube? I see square, square. That's another square. Well, that's another square. Okay, and then how many of those shapes make up the cube? So if I started at my cube, how many squares do I have that make up my cube? Okay, you have 4 on the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have 1 on top, 1 on bottom. That's 6. Okay. All right, then it says find the area of each shape, okay, using the formulas in our last one, okay, using our area of polygons foldable, I can find the area of all those squares, okay. Once I find the area of those shapes, then I want to add them all up, okay. That's how you find the surface area, okay. And we're going to do some practice problems, just so we get familiar with it. All right, our first practice problem is going to be with a beautiful shape, okay. Mind you, Miss Grant learned, it took her a while to draw these shapes, so please don't feel like you need to be perfect at drawing the shape, okay? Notice how it is, there's a square in the front, and it's a little longer than a cube. We call this a rectangular prism. So Miss Grant was trying to draw a rectangular prism. I think she did an okay job at drawing that. So this is our 3D shape, is our rectangular prism. Okay. All right, so first we are going to identify the shapes that and how many of that shape make up the 3D object. So if I look at my 3D object here, we can even look at our beautiful model sitting here. Okay. What kind of shapes do we see? Okay, so step 1 is our shapes. I see a square in the front, and a square in the back. So we have 2. I'm actually going to draw a picture of a square. So I have 2 squares. Notice what kind of shapes make up the sides. Okay, notice that they're a little longer than a square, which means they're going to be a rectangle. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 rectangles. So we're going to add those 2 squares plus the 4 rectangles. So we've identified the shapes. We got squares and rectangles. And we've identified how many? 2 squares and 4 rectangles. Our second step is we are going to find the area of each shape. So with my squares, okay, this 2 is going to be awesome. It's going to come into play to make our work a lot easier for us. Okay, I'm going to keep that 2. And think of the squares as a variable. Think of the shapes as a variable. And when a number and a variable are smushed together, you know that's multiplication. So I'm going to multiply that times the area of a square. Okay, the area of a square is going to be our length times the width. And again, we're going to add this to our 4 rectangles, which again, the area of a rectangle is also length times the width. All right, again, no math was actually done. We just identified, and then we're going to find the area. Now you're like, Miss Grant, there's no numbers there. How do I find the area? Well, I have to give you those, okay? So I'm going to give you the bottom part of the square is going to be 3 inches. We're going to make it. And again, if the square, if one side is 3, this other side is also 3, which means this side is 3 inches, which means this side is 3 inches. Now we're looking at the long part of our rectangle, which is going to be 7 inches. So if I look at my squares, okay, we're going to have our 2 times our length, which is 3, times our width, which is also 3. And we're going to add this to the 4. For our rectangle on the side, we know our length is 7. Gotta get the right color pen. 7 times our width, which is going to be 3. So now we've plugged in our numbers. Now we're going to multiply. We have 2 times 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 4 times 7 times 3, which is going to be 21. All right, now we made it a little bit simpler, okay? So we have 2 times 9 plus 4 times 21. And again, with order of operations, you want to get rid of your parentheses, meaning these multiplication problems first, okay? 2 times 9 is going to be 18, plus 4 times 21, which is going to be 84. And when we add those together, we're going to get 102. And this is going to be inches squared. Still talking about areas, we still got our inches squared. All right, that was our rectangular prism. Let's go on to our next example. So we're going to put the paper over. All right, this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to draw the net of this 3D shape. Okay. So I have a rectangle. I have another rectangle. I have a third rectangle. And then I have a triangle and another triangle. So if I was to fold this all up, okay, it kind of looks like this. If I was to take the sides and fold them all up together so they all touch, okay, you notice that it might look like a rectangular prism, okay? Notice that we have our rectangles on our side, and then we have the bases as our triangles, triangle, triangle, okay? So a net is just an unfolded rectangular prism, so if I was able to take apart this prism and unfold it, you're going to get this net, okay? All right, let's talk about some parts of it. I'm going to tell you that this right here is going to be 6 centimeters. And again, with rectangles, you notice that opposite sides are going to be the same length. So I know if this is 6, this is also going to be 6. And again, if I know this side is 6, this is also going to be 6. Again, with this one, this is also going to be 6. Again, you don't have to label all of them, but it's a good idea. The long side of our rectangle is going to be 10 centimeters. And again, opposite sides are the same length. I know this is 10, I know this is 10, and I know this is 10. Lastly, for the height, again, it has to make a 90-degree angle with one of the bases. And I'm going to tell you that that height is going to be 5 centimeters. And again, if this height is 5 centimeters, I know that this height over here is also going to be 5 centimeters. All right, we have a lot of numbers there, okay? Let's go back to our steps. So first off, we've identified this shape as a triangular prism. Prisms are composed of rectangular sides. Okay, notice that our rectangular prism had rectangular sides, and just like our triangular prism, it has rectangle sides. Okay, the first word is determined by our bases. This is more of a rectangular base. That's more square-like, actually. This is our triangular base, so it's a triangular prism. Okay. All right. we've identified our shape. Now we're going to identify the 2D shapes that make it up and how many of them are there. Okay, I know that I see 2 triangles, plus I see 1, 2, 3 rectangles. And again, we're going to treat these shapes as variables. Remember, it's multiplication. All right, so our second step is to find the area of each shape. Okay, so we have 2. Now, remember the area of a triangle, okay? Using our area of polygons foldable, area of a triangle is half of the base times height. So for this one's a little bit bigger. We have half of our base times the height. It's a lot of parentheses there. And we're going to add that to 3 of our rectangles, which we know is just the length times the width. So our rectangles are relatively easy. If we look at our triangles, we have 2 times half of, our base is going to be 6 centimeters. So we have 6 times our height, which is 5. And we're going to add this to 3 times of our rectangles. We have our length of our rectangle, which is 10, times our width, which is 6. Not too bad. All we did is plug. Now we're going to chug using order of operations. Okay. We still have 2 times 1/2. 6 times 5 is 30. Add that to 3 times 10 times 6, which is 60. So we got 60. Easy. All right. We have 2 times half of 30. So if I have $30, half of 30 is 15. Just like if I have 30 minutes, half of 30 minutes is 15 minutes. So we have 15 plus 3 times 60. We're still at 3 times 60. All right, now we're using that distributive property. 2 times 15 is going to be 30. Plus 3 times 60, which is going to be 180. Now when I add those up, I get 210. And again, this is going to be centimeters squared. All right, I understand this is a huge process. This is a long process, especially with the area of a triangle. I would recommend A, writing it out every single step like Miss Grant did. Don't just plug it in and do some mental math. Not that I don't approve of that, but I'm letting you know that mistakes can happen that way. So make sure you show all of your work, okay, especially for the area of a triangle. Okay. All right, that is for finding surface area. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. You will be doing an activity on this later in the week. All right, have a great day.